32-year-old Jasmine Nelson and 26-year-old Cartish Gibbs were entangled in an ongoing dispute when tensions between the two Florida women reached a boiling point one evening in March of 2022. What began as a verbal altercation quickly escalated to blows at a park in West Palm Beach, where a gathering crowd recorded the brawl and posted the footage on social media. The fistfight took a sudden deadly turn when Nelson pulled a gun and shot her opponent. Video captured by onlookers showed Nelson swinging at Gibbs in an apparent attempt to strike her with the muzzle when the firearm went off. The bullet struck Gibbs in the neck and Nelson fled the scene, while panicked bystanders scrambled for safety. Nelson was taken into custody at a nearby restaurant later that day. She was originally charged with second-degree murder but pleaded guilty to a reduced manslaughter charge and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. She'll be released shortly before her 52nd birthday in October of 2041. Number 20. Brandon Velez. In February 2017, 19-year-old Brandon Velez was accused of fatally shooting his friend, 20-year-old Bobby Duvernay, while they were hanging out at another friend's home in Miami-Dade, Florida. According to police, Velez and Duvernay were playing with a gun in an irresponsible fashion when Velez pointed the gun at Duvernay, who grabbed the barrel. The gun discharged, striking Duvernay in the face and exiting through the back of his skull. Duvernay collapsed and Velez ran outside while a witness dialed 911. Emergency responders declared Duvernay dead at the scene and police arrested Velez at his home after the witness identified him as the shooter. Velez confessed to his role in the shooting and also reportedly admitted to disposing of the gun and trying to burn his clothing in a bid to conceal evidence of the crime. He was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Records show that Velez was released in November of 2022 and is currently serving the remainder of his sentence on probation. Number 19. Susan Russell. In May of 2024, 911 operators in Palm Beach County, Florida, received a panicked call from 68-year-old Susan Russell. She had accidentally shot her roommate, 27-year-old Ninoshka Michelle Almengor. During the 911 call, Russell explained that she thought the gun was unloaded because the magazine was out, but that the weapon had discharged, striking Almengor somewhere in the stomach region. Emergency responders found Almengor unresponsive with a gunshot wound to the chest. She died from her injuries and Russell is now facing a negligent manslaughter charge. Russell's arrest came in November 2024 following a months-long investigation into the case. Authorities are accusing her of carelessly pulling the trigger, adding that the incident was not an excusable homicide or murder. According to court documents, Russell found the Taurus handgun in her suitcase while preparing to go on a trip. Almengor asked to hold the gun, which went off while Russell was handing it to her roommate. While speaking with a detective, Russell reportedly took the blame for the shooting, stating, "One stupid mistake of not making sure the chamber was empty when you thought it was. That's all. Double check." Investigators subsequently discovered that Taurus pistols are capable of firing even when the magazine is removed. Speaking with local station WPTV after the tragedy, Almengor's mother, Carmen, said that her daughter had recently moved in with Russell to keep the elderly woman company and help her around the house after the two met at work. Carmen does not believe that the shooting was accidental and said that she wants Russell to pay for her actions, but she did not explain exactly why she feels this way. Russell, who insists otherwise, is currently free on a $30,000 bond amid the ongoing case. Number 18. Melissa Valbrum. A dispute between a Florida woman, a Lyft driver, and 3 Lyft passengers took a deadly turn in November 2024 when 32-year-old Melissa Valbrum accidentally shot her own teenage daughter in a McDonald's parking lot in Miami. According to reports, Valbrum pulled the gun and threatened to kill the Lyft passengers who were trying to get into a rideshare vehicle following a misunderstanding. As the car drove off, the gun accidentally discharged and the bullet struck Valbrum's high school-aged daughter in the shoulder. Valbrum reportedly became angry with the trio of passengers after her daughter told her that a member of the group was pointing at her. The furious mother confronted the 3 strangers, and an argument that began inside the restaurant eventually spilled outside as the Lyft passengers tried to leave. Valbrum denied pulling a gun, claiming that the weapon had accidentally discharged after falling from her waistband. But the lift passengers and driver told police otherwise, with the driver describing the woman's behavior as extremely aggressive. According to an affidavit, surveillance footage showed Valbrum with the gun in her hand, further disproving her version of events. She's currently free on a $22,000 bond and is banned from communicating with her daughter while the case plays out in court. Number 17. Joshua Wilbers. A Missouri man's excitement over his newly purchased .22 caliber rifle quickly turned to horror in 2022 when he accidentally shot his girlfriend while attempting to show her one of the gun's features. Joshua Wilbers was at his house in Jefferson City with 20-year-old Haley Phillips, with plans to go outside and test the weapon. When Phillips asked a question about the rifle, he later told investigators that he removed the magazine and pulled the bolt back several times to ensure that the chamber was empty, then accidentally pulled the trigger, fatally shooting Phillips. Wilbers was charged with first-degree involuntary manslaughter and armed criminal action. He waived his right to a jury trial and placed his fate in the hands of a judge, who found Wilbers guilty of first-degree involuntary manslaughter following a bench trial in July of 2024. During Wilbers' sentencing hearing, Phillips's loved ones described the young woman's death as an avoidable tragedy and blamed the defendant's negligence. Meanwhile, Wilbers' father pleaded with the judge to spare his son from a harsh sentence, claiming that Wilbur had already punished himself more than anyone else possibly could. Judge John Beatham sentenced Wilbers to 5 years of probation in lieu of a 4-year prison sentence, which means that the defendant will be spared from serving any time behind bars as long as he follows certain rules and fulfills any obligations set forth by the court. In explaining his decision to forego an active prison sentence, Beatham cited Wilbers' lack of a prior criminal history and the fact that the evidence proved that the tragedy was an accident, stating, "He didn't break the law, he wasn't under any influence. He made a really stupid choice." Number 16. Tonika Miller. After a late-night romp at an Indianapolis playground in May of 2022, 33-year-old Tonika Miller got into an argument with the father of her 2 children, 41-year-old Deshaun Roscoe, over Roscoe's alleged infidelity. During the disagreement, Miller fatally shot Roscoe in the head outside the leasing office of the victim's apartment building. Responding officers arrived to find the couple's young children alone in the apartment with blood on a door handle and a light switch. Miller explained during questioning that she and Roscoe felt safe leaving the kids unattended because they didn't go very far and weren't planning to be gone for long. She insisted the shooting was accidental, claiming that she had brought her gun with her for safety reasons, that she had turned the safety off so she could react quickly in the event of an emergency, and that the gun had discharged accidentally during her disagreement with Roscoe. Prior to the shooting, Miller had left the scene only to return a short while later to continue the argument. The fight escalated, resulting in a physical struggle between the two over access to the driver's seat of Miller's car. It was during the scuffle that the gun fired, with the bullet striking Roscoe in the cheek. Surveillance footage showed Roscoe immediately collapsing to the ground after Miller struck him while holding the gun. Miller could be seen attempting to apply pressure to Roscoe's head, then briefly driving away from the scene and to the apartment. She returned to the scene of the shooting shortly thereafter and stayed there until emergency responders arrived. In late 2023, Miller pleaded guilty to reckless homicide. She was sentenced to a year in prison, followed by 3 years of home detention, then 1 year of probation. Number 15. Sky Korbut. Animal lover and high school student Naomi Briggs was celebrating her 16th birthday at the apartment of her close friend Sky Korbut in Beaverton, Oregon, in November 2024 when she was shot in the stomach at close range. She narrowly survived severe internal injuries after being rushed to the hospital in critical condition and has undergone more than 6 surgeries amid her lengthy road to recovery. 18-year-old Korbut told police that the gun discharged accidentally when he tried moving it from on top of a dog kennel into a shoebox on a nearby bookcase. He claimed that he had removed the magazine and was handling the gun in a mindful fashion when it went off despite any precautions he was taking. Korbut was charged with assault and unlawful possession of a firearm. In the meantime, Briggs remained touch and go for 5 days until her condition was officially upgraded to stable. According to the most recent available updates, the teen remains hospitalized but is no longer sedated and has been moved from the intensive care unit to a regular room where she will remain for the foreseeable future. Number 14. Dylan Taylor Mims. On September 29th, 2021, police responded to a reported shooting at an apartment complex in Amarillo, Texas. Upon arriving at the scene, officers found 22-year-old Ladarius Eugene Johnson suffering from 2 gunshot wounds to the face inside his apartment. Johnson was rushed to the emergency room where he died from his injuries. Meanwhile, back at the apartment complex, police got to work investigating the case, starting with the interviews of 3 witnesses who were found in the courtyard with blood on their clothing. One of those individuals was Johnson's roommate, 23-year-old Dylan Taylor Mims, who admitted to accidentally shooting Johnson while playing with a handgun. Another roommate told investigators that Mims had pointed the gun at Johnson when it went off while making no mention of the incident being an accident. The third person police interviewed claimed he was in the shower at the time of the incident and that he didn't witness the shooting firsthand. In 2024, Mims pleaded guilty to manslaughter. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and fined $500. Records show that he'll become eligible for parole in March of 2025 but could remain behind bars until August of 2029. Number 13. Jimmy Mumper. In January of 2023, 26-year-old Jimmy Mumper of Racine, Wisconsin, was accused of murdering the fiancée of his children's mother. According to a criminal complaint, Mumper was involved in a 4-way relationship which included the mother of his 3 children, her fiancé, 25-year-old Gilbert Cotton, and another unnamed woman. During the incident in question, the mother of Mumper's children tried to end her relationship with Cotton, resulting in a physical fight between the two at their apartment. Mumper intervened in an attempt to break the fight up, at which point his gun went off, killing Cotton. He then fled the scene in a vehicle, throwing the gun out the window along the way, and was apprehended by police a short while later. During questioning, Mumper, who held a valid concealed carry permit, admitted to pulling his gun during the argument, but insisted that the weapon had discharged accidentally and that he didn't mean to kill the victim. He was nevertheless charged with first-degree intentional homicide and use of a dangerous weapon. Records show that the case remains open with a bond hearing scheduled for January of 2025. In November 2024, prosecutors charged Mumper with 1 felony count of failure to disclose event affecting eligibility, indicating that they believe he lied about his qualifications for a particular benefit, program, or service. Details about the more recent case have not been revealed to the public, leaving it unclear whether the charges related to the ongoing homicide case. Number 12. Amanda Sheppard. A New Mexico man narrowly survived after being shot in the back of the head at an Albuquerque pharmacy in January of 2024. The suspects, later identified as Amanda Sheppard and her boyfriend Jonathan Olivas, fled the scene and turned themselves into law enforcement several days later. According to police, Sheppard was carrying a .22 caliber revolver in her purse at the time of the incident. The gun went off when she dropped her purse. After the accidental discharge, Olivas grabbed the gun off the floor and put it in his pocket. The couple was then seen leaving the business in surveillance footage. After surrendering to law enforcement, Sheppard told investigators that she didn't know the gun was in her purse. She claimed that when she heard the pop of the gun going off, she mistakenly believed a piece of furniture had fallen onto the floor. During the fall of 2024, both Sheppard and Olivas took plea deals. Sheppard pleaded no contest to a tampering with evidence charge, while Olivas pleaded guilty to the same crime, and the pair were each granted a conditional discharge, along with the probation sentence. Number 11. Wayne David. 52-year-old veteran Washington, D.C. police officer Wayne David was working a routine shift in August of 2024 when he accidentally shot himself in the head while trying to retrieve a gun from a storm drain. He died from his injuries at a nearby hospital, bringing his 25-year career to a most unexpected and tragic end. David had gone to retrieve the gun after officers saw a shoeless man tossing it into the storm drain earlier that day during a police pursuit. The weapon discharged at least once during David's attempt to remove it from the drain. In surveillance video, the suspect, who discarded the gun earlier that day, could be seen riding off with another individual on the back of a motorcycle. After learning about the nature of the man's alleged involvement in the incident, the motorcycle driver called law enforcement and told them that the suspect was a stranger who had asked for a ride, claiming that he had just been robbed and that his life was in danger. He said he was unaware of the man's suspected role in David's death until a relative saw the case on the news and told him about it. Later identified as Tyrell Lamont Bailey, the suspect turned himself in after police began circulating still images of him, along with an appeal to the public for information regarding his identity and a $60,000 reward offer. Bailey was charged with carrying a pistol without a license, unlawfully discarding a gun, and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number. During his initial appearance in federal court, he wore a t-shirt that said, "Rule number 1, what they think." During a news conference announcing the tragedy, Executive Assistant Chief Jeffrey Carroll credited David with removing hundreds of guns from the streets throughout his law enforcement career, making the nation's capital a safer place for its residents and visitors alike. Number 10. Bob Dean Jr. Louisiana nursing home owner Bob Dean Jr. first fell at the center of unflattering news headlines in August of 2021 when he was accused of cruelly depriving hundreds of elderly residents of food and water after moving them to a stifling hot, deplorable warehouse during Hurricane Ida, resulting in 7 of the senior citizens' deaths. His name reappeared in the media in March of 2022 when he accidentally shot his thumb off outside a Ford car dealership in Thomaston, Georgia. According to law enforcement, police responded to the dealership at around 6:20 p.m. and spoke with a salesman who told them that the incident occurred while Dean was dropping off his Ford Bronco to be serviced. While moving multiple guns from the Bronco to a Dodge Ram pickup truck that he was picking up from the dealership, Dean reportedly showed a .357 revolver to the salesman, who told investigators that the weapon discharged after Dean began to play with it. In the words of news outlet WVLA-TV, Dean shot his thumb clean off his hand. He then fled the scene with his wife in a Mercedes-Benz. Deputies performed a welfare check at the beleaguered businessman's home, where his visibly upset wife explained that she was worried about her husband, who was bleeding uncontrollably. An argument ensued between the couple, and Dean sent the deputies away after declining medical assistance. He was subsequently charged with reckless conduct, discharging a firearm on the property of another, and discharging a gun near a public highway. But Dean had bigger problems on his hands, no pun intended, relating to the botched nursing home evacuation during Ida. He was accused of funneling money that was meant for the nursing home's operation into his personal accounts and spending it on personal purchases, including his gun collection. In July of 2024, he pleaded no contest to 15 state charges in exchange for a deferred 20-year prison term. The 70-year-old was sentenced to 3 years of probation, sparing him from any time behind bars, and was ordered to pay $2 million fines and restitution in a separate lawsuit. Dean and several of the companies he formerly owned agreed to pay $8.2 million to resolve violations of the National Housing Act of 1934. Number 9. Taniyria Holt.
First of all, this was a tragedy that was accidental. I'm sure she is past grieving. I'm sure more remorse for a sister that she loved.
In June of 2021, a 24-year-old Atlanta woman named Taniyria Holt was arrested in Miami-Dade, Florida for shooting her sister, Drenaya Ponder. According to law enforcement, the incident occurred while Holt, Ponder, and 2 other women were riding in a Jaguar and filming themselves. Holt was allegedly holding a 9mm handgun which belonged to one of the other women when she racked the weapon, causing a live round to strike Ponder in the face. She later told investigators that she believed the gun was emptied of live rounds and that the shooting was accidental. Authorities initially charged Holt with culpable negligence and improper exhibition of a firearm, but the charges were upgraded to manslaughter after Ponder was taken off life support and died. Records show that Holt was convicted of the charge and sentenced to 10 years of probation, which she appears to be serving in another state. Number 8. Andrew Shinault. A steamy romp between a Florida couple ended in tragedy in May of 2019 when 23-year-old Andrew Shinault accidentally shot his girlfriend Paloma Williams in the chest. According to prosecutors, Shinault was high on methamphetamine when he decided to use the gun as an adult toy at his home in the Tampa suburb of Valrico. He pointed the weapon at Williams multiple times and unintentionally pulled the trigger, resulting in Williams' death and Shinault's subsequent arrest for manslaughter. During the spring of 2021, nearly 2 years after the tragedy, Shinault took a plea deal and admitted to manslaughter in exchange for a 2-year prison sentence followed by 12 years of probation. He apologized to Williams' family during his sentencing hearing, but his expressions of remorse were not well received by the victim's loved ones, who blamed him for her death. Shortly after his release from prison in May of 2023, Shinault went to court and asked the judge to reduce his drug testing requirement from twice a week to once weekly. Prosecutor John Terry urged the judge to deny the request, noting that drug screening and treatment was extremely important to the victim's family, but the judge agreed to loosen Shinault's conditions. In doing so, he sternly warned Shinault that a relapse would immediately land him back in prison. Records show that his supervision is scheduled to remain in place until September 2033. Number 7. Chase Bishop. In June of 2018, an off-duty FBI agent was arrested after his gun discharged while he was dancing at a downtown Denver, Colorado club. 29-year-old Chase Bishop apparently got a little carried away while showing off his moves at the Mile High Spirits and Distillery and did a backflip, causing the gun to fall out of his waistband. Footage captured by an onlooker show the weapon dropping to the floor and then going off while Bishop attempted to retrieve it. The stray bullet struck 24-year-old Thomas Reddington, who was sitting at a nearby table, in the leg. Reddington survived, and further investigation revealed that Bishop had not been drinking when the incident occurred. Bishop, who was stationed in Washington, D.C. at the time, surrendered to local law enforcement 6 days later after local authorities issued a warrant for his arrest. He was charged with second-degree assault but was freed on a $1,000 bond and granted permission to continue carrying his gun amid the ongoing case due to his job duties. 6 months after the incident, Bishop pleaded guilty to a third-degree misdemeanor assault charge. Prosecutors dropped the more serious second-degree assault charge in exchange for his guilty plea, and he was sentenced to 2 years of probation. Bishop was also ordered to pay into the Victims Assistance Fund, along with a $1,200 probation fee. Number 6. Jacob Krueger. On July 15, 2021, police were called to an apartment in St. Charles, Illinois, where they found a 20-year-old man suffering from a gunshot wound to the head. The 911 call was placed by the apartment's renter and the accused shooter, 22-year-old Jacob W. Krueger, who was accused of accidentally shooting the male guest while handling a 9mm handgun. The victim was hospitalized with serious injuries, and police proceeded to investigate the case. During a search of the apartment, officers found several guns and a marijuana stash. After concluding that the shooting was unintentional, prosecutors charged Krueger with armed violence, felony reckless conduct to cause great bodily harm, felony possession with intent to sell, manufacture, or deliver of more than 30 grams but less than 500 grams of marijuana, and felony possession of more than 30 grams but less than 500 grams of marijuana. In December 2023, Krueger pleaded guilty to reckless conduct and unlawful possession of cannabis with intent to deliver. He was sentenced to concurrent prison terms totaling 4 years. Number 5. Brittany Howard. In early 2017, a 24-year-old mother of 3 from Alvin, Texas, named Brittany Howard, received a call from her mother saying that her father was behaving strangely. Brittany went over to her parents' house, where she found her dad in a severely distressed mental state and a gun in his possession. She attempted to intervene and the gun went off, with the bullet striking her in the face. Brittany survived but faced a lengthy and complicated recovery, which would require her to undergo multiple reconstructive surgeries. She underwent the first 3 of at least 6 planned operations within 3 weeks of the incident, which included having a metal plate put in her forehead and a skin graft on her nose. Despite her injuries and the upsetting nature of the incident that caused them, Brittany maintained a positive outlook on the future. She told ABC 13 that she harbored no resentment toward her father and that she would rather have physical scars than suffer the emotional pain that she would have experienced if she had lost her dad. Brittany's father's outlook on life reportedly changed completely after the incident, and he was no longer in the dark place that led to the incident resulted in his daughter's injuries. The Brazoria County District Attorney was less forgiving and charged Brittany's father with aggravated assault with a weapon of a family member. For the family, the criminal charge only added to the existing stress and struggles that they were trying to heal and move on from. Updates have not been forthcoming, leaving the outcome of the case unclear. Number 4. Maurqice Thomas. Just days before Christmas in 2022, 18-year-old Maurqice Rashawn Thomas was arrested for accidentally shooting a woman who was twerking on him at a booze-fueled house party in Coca, Florida, the previous month. According to law enforcement, officers were dispatched to the scene in response to a report of shots fired. They arrived to find the female victim suffering from a gunshot wound to the back, and several witnesses identified Thomas as the alleged shooter. Onlookers told police that they did not believe the shooting was intentional. The victim, who survived after undergoing multiple surgeries, said that Thomas and another man had been playing with a firearm in a reckless manner prior to the incident. She claimed that she told the men to stop playing around with the gun and that it discharged just moments later while she was twerking against Thomas. In an Instagram message to the woman after the shooting, Thomas profusely apologized, saying that the incident was unintentional and pleading with her to give him her phone number. But she apparently wasn't interested and told law enforcement that she wanted Thomas prosecuted, resulting in his arrest on multiple charges. Thomas was convicted of attempted manslaughter and is currently serving a 1 year and 8-month prison sentence for his crime. Number 3. Jordan Hurst.
Watch out! Are you okay?
No, you shot me!
Oh, God! Are you okay?
No, I'm hit!
Echo 7, 1081.
Oh my God!
No, 1081! Echo 7, 1081.
While responding to a call at a residence in Knoxville, Tennessee in 2022, Knox County Sheriff's Deputy Lydia Driver was attacked by a pit bull who knocked her to the ground. Driver's partner, Deputy Jordan Hurst, accidentally shot her in the leg while attempting to subdue the aggressive canine. In body cam footage of the incident, Hurst could be seen trying to shoot the dog. He missed his target by several inches, and Driver could be heard screaming in pain after being struck in the thigh. Upon realizing Driver had been shot, Hurst immediately tended to her wound while trying to keep her from falling unconscious and frantically radioing for help. Driver was rushed to the hospital, where she underwent emergency surgery. In the meantime, Hurst was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of an investigation. He was ultimately cleared of any wrongdoing and allowed to return to work, while Driver eventually recovered and also returned to work. Today's topic was requested by Nawabid. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Steeve Jean-Charles. A 22-year-old Florida man is facing criminal charges after his friend accidentally shot him while they committed a home burglary together. According to prosecutors, Steeve Jean-Charles and multiple other people were inside the residence shortly before 4:30 a.m. In October 2024, when he was shot in the chest, Jean-Charles reportedly claimed to have no memory of what had happened, then later told police that a man had shot him outside a gas station after asking him for money. He then changed his story again, telling investigators that he and his friend had gone to the residence where the incident occurred and were shot at by 2 unidentified black men. None of this was true, according to police. In fact, the incident was captured on surveillance footage, which appeared to show Jean-Charles and his friend exiting a car outside the home. The two began shooting at the residence, and the friend accidentally shot Jean-Charles while running behind him. According to the most recent available updates on the case, Jean-Charles is facing charges of attempted murder, shooting or throwing a deadly missile, and a felon in possession of a firearm. It's unclear whether his alleged accomplice has been charged in connection with the incident. Some people can't handle their guns, others can't handle their dogs. Stick around after number 1 if you have not yet seen our episode about when dog owners go wrong. Number 1. Tamara Anderson. A South Carolina woman is facing an involuntary manslaughter charge after fatally shooting her cousin in Columbia in August 2024. 39-year-old Tamara L. Anderson reportedly pulled a gun on an acquaintance during a late-night argument, prompting her cousin, 32-year-old Eugene Bell Jr., to intervene. Bell was shot during his apparent efforts to de-escalate the situation and was pronounced dead at the scene. Police arrested Anderson, who is currently free on a $100,000 bond amid the ongoing case. The details of the disagreement leading up to the deadly altercation are unclear. Number 11. Pitbull and Siberian Husky. Avonte Andre Point, an Arizona resident, was shocked to discover his 12-year-old son failed to properly close his home's gate, allowing his two pets to escape. Andre Point owned a pit bull and a Siberian Husky. The moment they'd managed to rush past the open gate, the two dogs began causing mayhem in the town of Gilbert. Witnesses claimed the pair charged people who they'd run into, attacking several onlookers, including a 70-year-old man. One of the victims, a local teenager, said she tried to approach the dogs to check on their collars, believing they were lost. She was viciously bitten on her leg as she moved closer. The other two victims hadn't attempted to get close to the runaway dogs and claimed the attacks were completely unprovoked. They were taken to the ER, but their injuries were fortunately not severe. The Husky and Pitbull were taken to the local pound, and though Andre Point attempted to find out what happened to his pets, he has yet to hear from the authorities up to the recording of this video. Number 10. Staffordshire Terrier. In September 2020, a pair of Staffordshire Terriers were discovered running away from a lethally injured dog in Edmonton. Emergency services were called and two paramedics tried to save the pet while animal control officers searched for the aggressive terriers. The violent dogs were seized and impounded from their home. A neighbor had been walking her dog when the two pets escaped a nearby backyard and lunged towards her. The woman and two passers-by were bitten by the violent dogs, though their injuries were not life-threatening. It's not yet been determined if the two attackers will be returned to their owner or what kind of fine will be set after the violent incident. Number 9. Bethany Lynn Stevens. When Bethany Lynn Stevens was found dead in the woods close to her home in Virginia in December of 2017, with gruesome wounds across her body after having been missing for some time, it was initially believed that she had been murdered. In the following days, rumors of her murder started spreading like wildfire in the small town of Goochland, and residents were worried about a killer on the loose. Those rumors did not immediately go away, even when the medical report came out that stated that Stevens had been mauled by her own dogs. Her friends and family simply could not believe it because of the incredibly close bond she was known to have with her two pit bulls that she was said to treat like her own children. It wasn't until further investigation was done and it was discovered that her pit bulls had been recently neglected when Stevens reconnected with her dogs that night. Because Stevens had been going through some personal issues, the dogs had been staying at her dad's. They had gone from sleeping in her bed at night for years to sleeping in a kennel outside in the cold, some days without even being fed. That is what experts believe caused the dogs to turn on Stevens when she picked up the dogs for a walk on that fateful December night. Number 8. Attack on a police officer. A Rottweiler viciously attacked a policeman after he attempted to arrest its owner. Authorities were called to the man's residence after receiving a report of domestic violence. The incident occurred in a southwest neighborhood of Sydney. When the police officers arrived, the homeowner had barricaded himself in his garage alongside his barking dog. The unnamed man began to yell at the officers and commanded his dog to attack. The police decided to arrest the 52-year-old man involved in the incident. That was when a massive Rottweiler lunged at the cops, viciously biting the sergeant directly on the face. The injuries were so severe that they required immediate surgery. The dog's owner was charged with common assault and 2 counts of urging a dog to attack. His lawyers requested bail, but it was denied due to the man's aggressive and reckless behavior. Number 7. Elisa Pilarski. In November of 2019, Parisian woman Elisa Pilarski was savagely torn apart by her partner's American Staffordshire Terrier. At 29 years old and 6 months pregnant at the time, Pilarski was taking the dog out for a walk one cold winter day in the Retz forest, about an hour outside of Paris. The terrier, named Curtis, belonged to her partner, Christophe Eloul, and it was her first time being alone with Curtis. Tragically, the timing of this happened to coincide with a deer hunt taking place in that same forest. during which a large pack of hunting dogs was being put to use. Elisa then called Christoph, telling him that she had come across some menacing dogs and that she was having a hard time keeping Curtis on his leash. Unfortunately, by the time Christoph arrived at the scene 45 minutes later, Elisa's dead body was found in a ravine, which he had initially believed to be just a log, when in reality, it was her stomach. All her clothes were torn off, and there were bites all over her limbs and head. Christoph was quick to blame the hunting pack's dogs as the cause of his partner's death, which the hunters vehemently denied. In a surprising turn of events, DNA results conducted on 62 hounds, all belonging to the hunting club, came back about a year later, confirming their innocence. To add to the matter, Curtis the Terrier's DNA was found on Pulaski's wounds, as well as her own DNA on Curtis's leash. While Curtis was locked up in a dog pound, after Elisa's death, he went on to bite another person. Number 6. Pit bulls. 4 pit bulls managed to escape their owner's home and ran wild across the Missouri town of Florissant. Several neighbors called the police department, reporting that the pack of dogs was attacking residents. The first woman to be attacked was walking alone, and the pit bulls lunged at her. She sustained a number of serious bites all over her body. Several neighbors rushed to her aid. A local woman subsequently told the authorities she was certain that if no one had arrived to scare the pit bulls away, the victim would have been killed. Witnesses claimed the dogs were going berserk and had even torn their victim's shoes off. Though neighbors tried to stop the pack of dogs, they kept running down the street, attacking an elderly woman and 2 other people. They bit one of the town's residents so deep that they managed to penetrate the bone of her leg. As they rushed up and down the streets, one of the dogs was killed by a passing car. The 3 remaining pit bulls ended up attacking 2 other people before being stopped. One of the elderly residents was hospitalized in severe condition due to his injuries. Number 5. Alberta dog attack. An Alberta utility worker was traumatized by a vicious dog attack that landed her in the hospital. In December of 2020, Tina Dodwell was changing utility meters in her assigned area. She decided to enter a backyard after knocking for several minutes and receiving no response. Dodwell needed to complete a scheduled visit to make sure the meter was working correctly, even though she usually reminded her customers that it was part of her job to enter their backyards. Some still became aggressive. Such was the situation during this last visit. When Dodwell entered through the back gate, she was shocked to see a woman opening the house's door, allowing a pit bull and another dog to charge her. 2 neighbors heard her screams and rushed to her aid. Though the attack only lasted a minute or 2, she told authorities it felt like hours as the dog bit her arms, legs, and even her torso. Dodwell was rushed to the hospital and required dozens of stitches to mend her lacerations and puncture wounds. She's been terrified of dogs ever since and has been attempting to heal mentally through exposure therapy. The dog's owner was charged $1,500, and authorities are still considering whether to press criminal charges. Number 4. Repeat offenders. 2 vicious pit bulls attacked and killed a neighbor's pet only 9 months after their first reported attack. The Chicago pets had escaped from their owner's house several times in the past, and police were called to the area once more. Though one of the pit bulls was captured and returned to their home, the other one managed to jump into a neighbor's fenced backyard. It savaged another pet, an 8-year-old dachshund named Suki, killing it instantly. Suki's owner rushed to rescue his pet, but it was too late to do anything to aid it. The 2 pit bulls were considered highly aggressive, and their owners had been ordered by a judge to keep them muzzled and in a secure enclosure. After the second attack, the pit bull's owner decided to have his pets euthanized. The male was put down while the female was placed in a shelter while awaiting a judge's decision. Number 3. Pit bull attack. Illinois police were called to a Galesburg neighborhood where horrified residents witnessed a local pit bull attacking a leashed dog. A man and a woman were walking their dogs when a pit bull suddenly emerged out of its backyard and attacked without any warning. Fortunately, neither one of them was bitten, but couldn't get the violent pit bull mix off their pets. While Sadie, the small Pomeranian, was killed instantaneously, their dachshund, named Bandit, was wounded and managed to survive the attack. When officers arrived, the pit bull's owner had already managed to force her pet into the backyard. She claimed the dog's true owner was her son and that she was just pet sitting. Her backyard wasn't prepared to host a violent beast. Animal control took the pit bull, named Azula, away. Its owner might face criminal charges, along with several penalty fees. Number 2. Long Island Pit Bulls. 3 pit bulls went on a rampage in July of 2020 and attacked 4 different people after escaping their backyard. Several onlookers called the police, who arrived soon after. Though an officer shot at the pack, none of the pets were injured in the process. All 4 victims required stitches and medical treatment, but fortunately, none of their injuries were lethal. The 3 pit bulls had a history of escaping and had even attacked a police officer as well as an independent contractor who responded to animal complaints. Fortunately, the dog's owner managed to lock them back in the yard, putting an end to the rampage. He was notified about the incidents and an investigation was launched. Number 1. Elderly woman killed by bull mastiffs. A 91-year-old Australian resident was savagely attacked by 3 bull mastiff cross mixes while visiting a local beach. She was taking a morning swim at Collingwood Beach when the dogs rushed towards her, having previously escaped from their backyard after breaking the fence. The dog's owner, Adam Newbold, was shocked to discover the news and claimed his pets were always gentle to his daughters, as well as the family's cat and lizard. When the dogs escaped the house, Newbold's partner attempted to get them back in the backyard, but they were faster. The mastiffs managed to wound 4 other people before reaching the unnamed elderly woman. The dogs were put down after the incidents, and an investigation on the attacks was launched.
Thanks for watching. If you were home while your home was being invaded by 2 burglars, would you rather have a machete or a rubber bullet gun at your disposal, and why? Let us know in the comments section below.